The boardroom felt smaller than it should have, despite the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan's glittering skyline. Yates Xavier stood at the head of the mahogany table, his 6'2" frame casting a long shadow across the faces of 12 executives who waited for his decision on the pharmaceutical merger that would reshape the industry. But his mind was somewhere else entirely, stuck on the faded photograph he had discovered that morning while clearing out his penthouse safe. His mother, young and radiant, standing in front of a weathered building with Riverside, Montana, scrawled on the back in her delicate handwriting. "Mr. Xavier," his CFO's voice cut through the fog, "should we proceed with the acquisition terms?" Yates refocused, his sharp blue eyes scanning the documents before him. "Table it for 2 weeks. I need to review the subsidiary operations personally." The executives exchanged glances but knew better than to question him. At 32, Yates had built Xavier Pharmaceuticals into a $20 billion empire through instinct and ruthless efficiency. When he made a decision, people listened. An hour later, Yates sat alone in his office, the photograph resting on his desk. His mother, Catherine Xavier, had died of cancer when he was 15, leaving him with his distant father who had passed 5 years ago. She had rarely spoken of her childhood, and Yates had been too young to ask the right questions. Now, with both parents gone, he realized how little he knew about where he came from. The loneliness that accompanied his success felt heavier than usual. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Clear my schedule for the next week. I am taking a personal trip." 3 days later, Yates drove his Range Rover through the winding roads of western Montana, watching as towering buildings gave way to endless sky and rolling hills. Riverside was a dot on the map, population barely scraping 2,000, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and strangers were noticed immediately. As he pulled into the small town, past modest homes with front porches and pickup trucks, he wondered what his mother had left behind here, and why she had never returned. The main street consisted of perhaps 20 buildings, a diner, a hardware store, a small grocery, and a library that looked like it had been standing since the town's founding. Yates parked in front of the diner, drawing curious stares from the handful of locals scattered along the sidewalk. His tailored Henley and dark jeans were understated by his standards, but he still looked out of place. The bell above the door chimed as he entered. The interior was classic Americana red vinyl booths, a long counter with swivel stools, and the smell of coffee and pie. A few patrons looked up from their meals, their conversations pausing as they took in the stranger. "Sit anywhere you like, honey," called a woman from behind the counter, her gray hair pulled into a neat bun. Yates chose a booth by the window and picked up the laminated menu, though his attention was on the photographs covering the walls, decades of town history captured in faded prints. A young woman approached his table, order pad in hand, and Yates felt his breath catch. She was beautiful in an effortless way that made New York socialites seem like they were trying too hard. Dark auburn hair fell past her shoulders in natural waves, and her hazel eyes held warmth and intelligence. She wore jeans and a simple green sweater that matched her eyes, an apron tied around her waist. "Welcome to Miller's. What can I get you?" Her voice was soft but confident, "Coffee black, and whatever pie you recommend." Yates found himself wanting to keep her at the table longer. "I am new in town. We noticed." A slight smile played at her lips. "The Range Rover kind of gave it away. I am Harper Pierce. The pie is apple, and yes, it is worth it." "Yates." He extended his hand, and when she shook it, he felt an unexpected spark of connection. Her grip was firm, her hands showing the evidence of real work. "Yates Xavier." Something flickered in Harper's eyes at his last name, but it passed quickly. Xavier, that is not a common name around here. I will get your coffee and pie." As she walked away, Yates noticed her graceful movements, the way she greeted other customers with genuine warmth. He pulled out his phone to check emails but found himself watching her instead, the way she laughed at something an elderly man said, how she refilled cups without being asked. Harper returned with his order, and the pie did live up to its promise. "So what brings you to Riverside, Yates Xavier? We do not get many visitors, especially not ones driving luxury SUVs. Looking into my family history. My mother grew up here, Catherine Brennan, before she married." He watched Harper's face carefully, hoping for recognition. The coffee pot Harper was holding nearly slipped from her grasp. She set it down carefully on the table, her eyes wide. "Catherine, you are Catherine Brennan's son." Yates sat forward, his heart racing. "You knew her, knew her." "She was my best friend's grandmother. Wait here." Harper disappeared into the kitchen, returning moments later without her apron. She slid into the booth across from him, her professional demeanor replaced by something more personal. "Catherine was my grandmother's neighbor and closest friend. When my grandmother got sick 8 years ago, Catherine flew out to help care for her. I was 20 then, home from college to help, and Catherine stayed for 3 weeks. She talked about you constantly, how proud she was, how brilliant you were. She showed me pictures." The information hit Yates like a physical force. "My mother came back here. She never told me." Harper's expression softened with understanding. "She said she had not told you because you were busy with school and starting your career. She did not want to burden you. But she loved this town, loved the memories here. She made me promise to show her son around if he ever came looking." Harper paused, studying his face. "She said you had her eyes." Yates looked away, overwhelmed by emotion he rarely allowed himself to feel. "She died 6 months after that trip. I was too focused on building the company to notice she was pulling away, saying goodbye to people and places." The regret in his voice was palpable. "You could not have known." Harper reached across the table, her hand covering his briefly before she pulled back, as if surprised by her own gesture. "Catherine talked about how driven you were, how you were going to change the world with your pharmaceutical research. She was so proud, Yates." "Change the world," he repeated bitterly. "I make money. That is what I do. Your company developed that new insulin delivery system that cut costs by 60%. My best friend's daughter is diabetic. That changed her world." Harper's voice was gentle but firm. "Do not diminish what you have built." They sat in silence for a moment, the diner's ambient noise fading into the background. Finally, Harper spoke again. "I promised Catherine I would show you the town if you came. Are you staying long enough for a tour? I cleared my schedule for a week." "Then meet me at the library tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. I work there part-time and there are things you should see." She stood, reaching for her apron. "And Yates, she talked about you every day she was here. You were not too busy for her, you were her reason for everything." That night, Yates checked into the town's only inn, a converted Victorian house run by a friendly couple in their 60s. His room was nothing like his penthouse floral wallpaper, a quilted bedspread, antique furniture, but he found it oddly comforting. He lay awake thinking about his mother, about the woman who had made such an impression on Harper in just 3 weeks, about Harper herself, and the way she had looked at him with such direct, unguarded kindness. The next morning, Yates arrived at the library 10 minutes early, unable to sleep past dawn. The building was small but well-maintained, its brick facade covered in climbing ivy. Inside, the smell of old books and furniture polish greeted him. Harper stood behind the front desk, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a cream-colored sweater. "Good morning." Her smile was genuine, reaching her eyes. "Ready for the grand tour?" of a 2,000-person town. How long could it take? Harper laughed, a sound that Yates found himself wanting to hear again. You would be surprised. Come on, city boy, let me show you where your mother came from. They started with the library itself, where Harper showed him the archives. Your mother grew up on Maple Street, the blue house with the white shutters. It is still standing, owned by the Hendersons now. She went to Riverside High, graduated valedictorian in 1968. Harper pulled out an old yearbook, flipping to a page marked with a sticky note. There was his mother, 17 and beautiful, her hair dark like his, her smile bright with possibility. She looks so young, Yates murmured, tracing the photo with his finger. She was brilliant, according to the records, full scholarship to Northwestern University. She was the first person from Riverside to go to a prestigious university. Harper pulled out more yearbooks, newspaper clippings. She won the state science fair 2 years running. The town was so proud of her. They spent an hour in the archives, with Harper narrating his mother's history. She had been a volunteer at the town's small clinic, played violin in the school orchestra, and had been part of the debate team. Yates saw sides of his mother he had never known, the small-town girl who had dreamed big and made those dreams reality. Why did you mark that page? Yates asked, noticing the sticky note was recent. Harper looked down at her hands. After Catherine visited, I started researching. I wanted to understand her better, understand what it meant to leave a place like this and build a whole new life. I guess part of me hoped you might come looking someday, and I wanted to be ready. The simple honesty of the statement touched something deep in Yates. You did not even know me. I knew your mother. That was enough. Harper closed the yearbook carefully. Come on, there is more to see. They walked through the town, Harper pointing out landmarks. The corner where his mother's father had run a small accounting office, the church where she had been baptized, the park where she had apparently spent countless hours reading under an old oak tree that still stood, gnarled and magnificent. She sat right there, Harper said, pointing to a bench beneath the oak. She told me she used to dream about bigger things, about discovering cures for diseases, about making a difference. She became a nurse instead, Yates said quietly. She gave up her dreams when she married my father. He wanted a wife who could host dinners and manage the household. Harper sat on the bench and Yates joined her. She did not give them up. She transferred them to you. Everything you have accomplished, you did it with her encouragement, her belief. That is not giving up dreams, that is passing them on. You are wise for someone so young. Yates studied her profile, the way the morning light caught in her hair. I am 28, not exactly a child. Harper turned to face him, her expression amused. And wisdom comes from paying attention, not from age. What else did my mother tell you about me? Harper hesitated, then spoke carefully. She said you were brilliant but lonely, that you had built walls to protect yourself after she got sick the first time when you were 13. She worried you were so focused on success that you were forgetting to live. The words cut deep because they were true. I am successful. Are you happy? No one had asked Yates that question in years, maybe ever. He did not know how to answer. Instead, he changed the subject. What about you? What is Harper Pierce's story? College graduate working part-time at a library in a small town that is not typical. Harper stretched her legs out in front of her, leaning back against the bench. I went to the University of Montana, got a degree in library science and history. Came back here to take care of my grandmother when she got sick. She passed 4 years ago. Her voice caught slightly. I stayed because this is home. I work at the library 20 hours a week, help manage my family's ranch the rest of the time. You are a rancher. Yates could not hide his surprise. Among other things, my father runs the operation, but I handle the business side, accounts, contracts, breeding records. We have about 300 head of cattle and a small horse breeding program. She looked at him with challenge in her eyes. Surprised that a small-town girl can balance books and brand cattle. Impressed, actually. And he was. Harper was unlike anyone he had encountered in his world of boardrooms and charity galas. How does the diner fit in? I help Millie, the owner, a few times a week. She practically raised me after my mother died when I was 8. It is not about the money, it is about community, about being there for people who were there for me. Harper stood, brushing off her jeans. Come on, rancher's daughter wants to show the billionaire pharmaceutical air the family spread. How did you know about the billionaire part? Yates stood, following her back to where their vehicles were parked. Your mother mentioned Xavier Pharmaceuticals. I Googled you. Harper's tone was matter of fact. Impressive company. The work you are doing with affordable medications is genuinely changing lives. They drove in separate vehicles to the Pierce Ranch, about 15 minutes outside town. The property was sprawling and beautiful, rolling pastures dotted with cattle, mountains rising in the distance. The main house was a 2-story log structure with a wraparound porch, clearly built with care and meant to last generations. A man in his late 50s emerged as they parked, his weathered face breaking into a smile when he saw Harper. Did not expect you back so early, sweetheart. Dad, this is Yates Xavier, Catherine Brennan's son. Yates, my father, Robert Pierce. Robert's handshake was firm, his eyes assessing. Catherine's boy. She talked about you plenty when she was here. You have her look about you. He turned to Harper. You giving him the town tour? Promised Catherine I would if he ever showed up. Harper linked her arm through her father's affectionately. Thought I would bring him by, show him what real work looks like. Yates spent the afternoon learning about ranching operations, watching Harper move through tasks with easy competence. She checked fences, reviewed feeding schedules with the ranch hands, and spent time in the stable examining a pregnant mare. In her element, she was even more captivating, confident, knowledgeable, and completely unimpressed by his wealth or status. Want to ride? Harper asked, emerging from the stable leading 2 horses. I have not been on a horse since I was a teenager at summer camp. Then it is about time. She handed him the reins of a patient-looking bay gelding. This is Chester. He is bomb-proof. He will take care of you. They rode through the property, Harper pointing out property lines and explaining the operation. The late afternoon sun painted everything gold, and Yates found himself relaxing in a way he had not in years. There were no emails to answer, no deals to close, no pressure to be anything other than present in the moment. This is incredible, Yates said as they paused on a ridge overlooking the ranch. You have built something real here. My grandfather built it. My father maintained it. I am just trying to keep it going for the next generation. Harper's voice carried a hint of worry. The economics are tough. Big corporate operations are making it harder for family ranches to compete. Have you considered modernizing operations? There are agricultural technologies that could improve efficiency. Harper looked at him with amusement. There is the businessman. Yes, we have considered it. Some of it requires capital we do not have, and some of it does not fit with our sustainable practices. We are not a factory farm, Yates. We care about the animals, the land. That means sometimes doing things the harder way. I was not suggesting you compromise your values, just that there might be ways to strengthen your position. Yates felt defensive, though he was not sure why her opinion mattered so much. I know. Sorry, I am sensitive about it. We have had offers from larger operations wanting to buy us out. Dad wants to refuse, but I worry about his retirement, about whether I can keep this going alone when he is older. Harper urged her horse forward. But that is my problem, not yours. Come on, I will race you back to the barn. She took off before he could respond, and Yates followed, Chester surprising him with a burst of speed. Harper won easily, laughing as she dismounted, her cheeks flushed from the ride and the cool air. Yates found himself staring, caught by her natural beauty and unguarded joy. "You let me win," he accused. "I absolutely did not. I have been riding since I was 3. You have been on a horse for an hour. Accept the loss gracefully, billionaire." But her eyes were warm, teasing. That night, Robert insisted Yates stay for dinner. The meal was simple pot roast, vegetables from last summer's garden, fresh bread, but it was the best food Yates had eaten in months. They sat around a worn kitchen table, and Robert shared stories about Catherine's visits, about how she had helped care for his wife in her final days. "Your mother was a saint," Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. "My Ellen was in so much pain, and Catherine knew just how to ease it. Not just with medicine, but with kindness. She would sit with her for hours, reading or just talking. When Ellen passed, Catherine held Harper while she cried. We never forgot that." Harper wiped her eyes quickly, but not before Yates saw the tears. He reached under the table and squeezed her hand, offering the same comfort she had given him. She squeezed back, holding on for a moment longer than necessary. After dinner, Harper walked Yates to his car. The night was clear, stars visible in a way they never were in New York. "Thank you for today," Yates said. "I learned more about my mother in 8 hours than I have in years. She would be glad you came here." Harper wrapped her arms around herself against the cool evening air. "What are you doing tomorrow?" "I was planning to drive around, see more of the area." "Let me show you the mountains. There is a place your mother loved, a lake about an hour from here. I go there when I need to think." Harper hesitated. "Unless you are tired of tour guides." "I would like that." More than like, Yates realized. He was not ready to say goodbye to Harper, to the feeling of connection he had with her. "Pick me up at 8. Bring layers and good boots if you have them." The next morning, they drove into the mountains in Yates's Range Rover, following winding roads that climbed steadily higher. Harper directed him through turns, occasionally pointing out wildlife or landmarks. They talked easily, the conversation flowing from his mother to their own lives. "What made you choose pharmaceuticals?" Harper asked. "My mother's illness. Watching her go through treatments that were as devastating as the cancer, seeing the cost of medications bankrupt families. I wanted to fix that, to make treatments better and more accessible." Yates kept his eyes on the road, but his voice revealed his passion. The business side came naturally, but the mission was personal. "You have done that. The work Xavier Pharmaceuticals does with pediatric oncology, it is changing survival rates. You really did your research. I wanted to know who I was spending my week with." Harper's honesty was disarming. "I am not going to lie, I was curious about the Billionaire Part 2. Hard to imagine Catherine's sweet, bookish son becoming this titan of industry." "Disappointed?" "No." Harper's voice was soft. "You are not what I expected. You are more real, more human. The tabloids make you sound cold and ruthless." "I am, in business." Yates glanced at her. "But I try not to be that way in the rest of life." They reached the lake by mid-morning. It was pristine, surrounded by pine trees and mountains, the water so clear Yates could see rocks on the bottom near the shore. Harper led him along a trail to a spot where flat rocks formed a natural seating area overlooking the water. "Catherine and I came here during her last visit. She said this was where she used to come as a girl to sort out her thoughts, to dream about the future." Harper sat on one of the rocks, and Yates settled beside her. "She told me about your father, about how the marriage was not what she hoped, but that she never regretted it because it gave her you." Yates felt the familiar knot of guilt and sadness. "My father was not a bad man, just emotionally distant. I think he loved her in his way, but he did not know how to show it. After she died, we barely spoke. The business was all we had in common. Did you love him? I respected him. I am not sure I knew him well enough to love him. Yates picked up a small stone, turning it over in his hands. I think I have been running from that emptiness ever since, building and acquiring and achieving to fill the void. Harper leaned her shoulder against his, a simple gesture of comfort. Maybe that is why you are here. Not just to learn about your mother, but to figure out what you want your life to be. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the water reflect the sky. Yates felt something shifting inside him, a loosening of the rigid control he maintained over his emotions. Harper's presence was calming, grounding. She did not want anything from him, did not need him to be the billionaire or the CEO. She just wanted him to be Yates. "Tell me about your mother," Yates said eventually. "You mentioned she died when you were 8. Harper took a deep breath. Car accident. Black ice on the highway coming home from town. She was a teacher, 4th grade, and everyone loved her. Her death hit the community hard, but it devastated Dad and me. My grandmother moved in to help raise me, and Millie took me under her wing. The whole town kind of adopted me. That must have been a beautiful way to grow up, despite the loss. It was. I never felt alone, even in grief. Everyone looked out for me." Harper smiled sadly. "That is what I love about Riverside. People care about each other. It is not perfect, but it is real. And you never wanted to leave." "See the bigger world. I saw it. Went to college, spent summers in Seattle and Portland, but I kept coming back here. My roots are deep in this place." Harper looked at him. "Does that seem limited to someone like you who has traveled the world? It seems brave. Knowing what you want and not being swayed by what you are supposed to want." Yates met her gaze. "I have everything I thought I wanted, and I am not sure any of it makes me happy." "Then change it." Harper spoke with simple conviction. "You are the billionaire. You can do anything you want." "Can I?" The question was heavier than it sounded. Yates was bound by responsibilities, expectations, shareholders, employees depending on him for their livelihoods. "Yes, it might be complicated, but you can." Harper stood, extending her hand to pull him up. "Come on, let me show you something else." She led him further around the lake to a small cabin, weathered but maintained. "This belongs to my family. My grandfather built it as a fishing retreat. I come here sometimes to get away, to write." "You write?" "Local history, mostly. Articles for regional magazines. Working on a book about Montana ranching families." Harper unlocked the cabin and they stepped inside. It was simple, one main room with a fireplace, a loft bedroom, basic kitchen. But it was cozy, filled with books and quilts and the sense of being a well-loved refuge. "It is perfect," Yates said, meaning it. Harper smiled, pleased. "I think so. Your mother stayed here for a few days during her visit. She said it reminded her of what mattered: simplicity, nature, peace." They spent the afternoon at the cabin, talking and reading and simply existing in the space. Harper made sandwiches from supplies in the small propane-powered refrigerator, and they ate on the porch overlooking the lake. Yates found himself sharing things he never told anyone: his fears about being unable to live up to his mother's hopes, his loneliness despite constant company, his growing awareness that success was not the same as fulfillment. "You need to let people in," Harper said gently. "You have built these walls to protect yourself, but they are also isolating you. I am letting you in, because I am safe. I am a rancher's daughter in Montana. I am not part of your real world." But Harper's voice carried a hint of sadness, and Yates realized she had thought about this, about what he represented and what was possible between them. "Maybe my real world is the problem." Yates turned to face her fully. "This week with you has felt more authentic than the last 5 years in New York. That is vacation talking. the novelty of small-town life, the escape from pressure. Harper would not look at him. "You will go back to your empire, and this will be a pleasant memory. You do not know that." "Yes, I do." Now Harper met his eyes, and he saw the conflict there. "I have lived here my whole life, Yates. I have seen plenty of people pass through, enchanted by the mountains and the slower pace. They always leave. And even if you are different, even if this is real for you right now, you have responsibilities. You have thousands of employees, research that is saving lives. You cannot walk away from that for a woman you have known 4 days. I am not talking about walking away. I am talking about finding balance, about making space for something more than work." Yates reached for her hand. "I am talking about wanting to know you better, about not being ready to say goodbye at the end of this week." Harper's fingers intertwined with his, and he felt her tremble slightly. "I want that too, but wanting it and making it work are different things. Then let me try. Let me figure out how." Yates pulled her closer, and Harper did not resist. They sat that way for a long moment, the physical closeness speaking what words could not quite capture. As the sun began setting, they drove back to Riverside in comfortable silence, Harper's hand resting on the console between them, Yates occasionally covering it with his own. When he dropped her at the ranch, he walked her to the porch. "Tomorrow is Sunday," Harper said. "Will you come to church with me? Your mother attended services when she visited. It meant a lot to her." "I have not been to church since her funeral." "Then maybe it is time." Harper squeezed his hand. "I will pick you up at 9. Church was an experience Yates had not expected. The congregation was small, housed in a white wooden building with a steeple, and everyone genuinely seemed happy to see each other. Harper introduced him around, and people welcomed him with sincere warmth. When several older women mentioned remembering his mother as a girl, their affection was obvious. The service was simple but moving, the pastor speaking about community and taking care of one another. Yates found himself thinking about his mother, about her faith and how it had sustained her through difficult times. Harper sang the hymns with a clear, pretty voice, and when she glanced at him and smiled, Yates felt something profound settle in his chest. After the service, several families invited them to lunch, but Harper politely declined, leading Yates to her truck. "I want to show you one more place." They drove to the cemetery on the edge of town, and Harper led him through the headstones to a simple grave marker. Ellen Rose Pierce, beloved wife and mother. Harper knelt, placing fresh flowers she had brought. "I come every Sunday after church," she said quietly. "Tell her about my week, ask her advice, probably sounds silly." "It sounds like love." Yates knelt beside her, reading the dates. She was young, 42. "I keep thinking about all the things she missed, my high school graduation, college, all the moments I needed her." Harper's voice broke slightly. "Your mother helped me understand that she is still with me in everything I do, that love does not end with death." They stayed for a while, Harper telling her mother about her week, about Yates and his search for his mother's history. Yates found himself speaking too, thanking Ellen Pierce for raising such an extraordinary daughter, for being there for his mother when she needed a friend. As they left the cemetery, Harper took Yates's hand naturally, and they walked that way to the truck. "There is one more grave you should see." She led him to another section, to a plot marked Catherine Ann Xavier, and Yates stopped, shocked. "My mother is buried here. She made the arrangements during her visit. She wanted to come home, to be in the place she loved. Your father respected her wishes." Harper stood back, giving him privacy. Yates knelt before his mother's grave, overwhelmed. He had not attended the burial, had been too consumed by grief and work to make arrangements. His father had handled everything, and Yates had assumed she was in the family plot in Connecticut. Seeing her here in the town she loved felt right. "I am sorry, Mom," he whispered. "Sorry I did not know. Sorry I was not there for you the way you were for me. I am trying to understand now, trying to be the person you wanted me to be." Tears he had not allowed himself to shed in years ran down his face. "I met Harper. I think you would be glad about that." Harper knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around him as he cried, offering silent comfort. They stayed until Yates had no tears left, until the grief had eased into something more manageable. "Thank you," Yates said roughly, wiping his face, "for bringing me here, for showing me all of this. Your mother wanted you to know your roots, to understand where you came from. She hoped it would help you figure out where you are going." Harper helped him stand. "Are you okay? I am better than I have been in years." And it was true. Despite the tears, despite the grief, Yates felt lighter, more connected. "Stay with me tonight." "Not like that," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "I just do not want to be alone." They went to the inn, and Yates asked the owners for their largest room. They spent the evening talking, sitting on the small sofa, Harper curled against his side. They discussed his mother, his work, Harper's dreams for the ranch and her writing. As night deepened, Harper dozed off against his shoulder, and Yates carefully lifted her to the bed, covering her with a blanket before settling in the armchair to sleep. He woke in the middle of the night to find Harper sitting up watching him. "Come here," she said softly. "The chair cannot be comfortable." Yates moved to the bed, lying on top of the covers while Harper remained beneath them. She took his hand, and they fell asleep that way, connected but respecting boundaries. Morning brought clarity and complication. Yates had 2 days left in Riverside, and then he was expected back in New York for the merger meetings. Harper had to return to ranch work. Having taken time off she could not really spare, over breakfast at the diner they faced reality. "I do not want this to end," Yates said. "Neither do I, but I do not know how to make it work." Harper looked miserable. "My life is here. Yours is in New York. Those are not compatible. What if they could be? What if I spent more time here, worked remotely part of the time? You are the CEO of a major corporation. You cannot run that from Montana. I can try. Video conferencing, delegating more. I have good people." Yates reached across the table for her hand. "Harper, I have spent 4 days with you, and I feel more alive than I have in years. I do not want to lose you. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you are kind and intelligent and strong. I know you make me laugh and challenge me and make me want to be better. I know when I am with you, I feel like I am exactly where I am supposed to be." Yates gripped her hand tighter. "Tell me you do not feel this too, and I will walk away." Harper closed her eyes, a tear sliding down her cheek. "I feel it. God help me, I feel it. But Yates, this is crazy. We are from different worlds. Then let me try to bridge them. Give me a chance." Yates stood, pulling her up and into his arms. "I am not promising it will be easy, but I am promising I will try." Harper looked up at him, searching his face. Whatever she saw there satisfied her because she nodded. "Okay, we will try." Yates kissed her then, properly, deeply, pouring all his feelings into the connection. Harper kissed him back with equal intensity, her arms wrapping around his neck. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. "That was worth waiting for," Harper said with a shaky laugh. They spent the remaining 2 days making plans and stealing moments together. Yates met more of Harper's friends and extended family, integrating himself into the community. He helped with ranch work, proving surprisingly capable once he learned what to do. In the evenings, they talked for hours, learning each other's histories, hopes, fears. On his last night, Yates took Harper to the one nice restaurant in the neighboring town, an Italian place with candlelight and good wine. He had dressed in the one suit he had brought, and Harper wore a simple blue dress that made her eyes luminous. "You are so beautiful," Yates said, unable to look away from her. Harper blushed. You clean up pretty well yourself, billionaire. Over dinner, they made concrete plans. Yates would return to New York to handle the merger and begin restructuring his schedule. He would return in 3 weeks for an extended stay, working remotely as much as possible. They would talk daily, video chat regularly. "This is going to be hard," Harper said, her fingers playing with her wine glass. "I know, but you are worth it." Yates covered her hand with his. "I have never been more certain of anything." After dinner, they drove to the lake cabin where Harper had prepared a fire. They sat on the porch under blankets, watching stars emerge in the crystal sky. "I keep waiting to wake up to find out this was all a dream," Harper said, her head on Yates's shoulder. "If it is, I do not want to wake up." Yates kissed the top of her head. "Harper, I am falling in love with you. It is too soon and it is probably insane, but it is true." Harper turned to face him, her eyes shining. "I am falling in love with you too. I tried not to, but you made it impossible." They kissed under the stars, and Yates felt something fundamental shift in his universe. This woman, this place, this feeling, it was what he had been searching for without knowing. His mother had led him here, had somehow known that Riverside held not just her history but his future. The next morning came too quickly. Yates packed his belongings, his heart heavy. Harper met him at the inn, and they drove to his mother's grave together for a final visit before he left. "I promise I will take care of him," Harper said, kneeling by the headstone. "I promise I will remind him to live, not just work. Thank you for bringing him to me." Yates added his own promise. "I will come back, Mom. This place, these people, Harper, I will not lose this. I will make you proud." The drive out of Riverside was the hardest thing Yates had done in years. Harper stood in the driveway of the ranch, waving, tears streaming down her face. Yates had to force himself to keep driving, to not turn around and stay. The 3 weeks back in New York were brutal. Yates threw himself into work, finalizing the merger, restructuring his executive team to allow more delegation, setting up systems for remote work. He spoke with Harper every night, video calls that left him aching to touch her, to be near her. "How is it going?" Harper would ask, and Yates would share the day's challenges and victories. "I miss you," he would say, and Harper would smile sadly, echoing the sentiment. On the 15th day, Yates's best friend and company vice president Marcus cornered him in his office. "You have been different since Montana. What happened there?" Yates considered deflecting, then decided against it. "I fell in love." Marcus raised his eyebrows. "The great Yates Xavier, undone by a woman. Tell me everything." Yates found himself sharing the whole story: his mother's grave, Harper, the town, the feeling of coming home to a place he had never been. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. "You are serious about making this work," Marcus said finally. It was not a question, completely. "Then I will help. We will figure out the logistics, make the board understand. You have earned the right to live your life, Yates." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "Besides, if she makes you this happy, I want to meet her." With Marcus's help, Yates accelerated his plans. He set up a satellite office, installed state-of-the-art technology for remote meetings, and scheduled his return to Montana for the end of the 3rd week. He did not tell Harper he was coming early. He wanted to surprise her. Yates drove straight from the airport to the ranch, arriving mid-afternoon. He found Harper in the stable, brushing down a horse, singing softly to herself. "You have a beautiful voice," Yates said from the doorway. Harper spun around, the brush falling from her hand. "Yates!" Then she was running, launching herself into his arms. Yates caught her, spinning her around, their laughter mixing with happy tears. "I could not wait 3 more days," Yates said, setting her down but not letting go. "I needed to see you. You are really here." Harper touched his face as if confirming he was real. "How long can you stay?" 2 weeks this trip. Then I will be back and forth regularly. I am restructuring everything to make this work." Yates kissed her thoroughly. "I told you, you are worth it." The next 2 weeks fell into a rhythm that felt like the future Yates wanted. He worked mornings, taking calls and video meetings from the ranch's office that Robert graciously let him convert. Afternoons he spent with Harper helping with ranch work, going riding, visiting the lake cabin, integrating himself into the community. Riverside accepted him with surprising warmth. The locals appreciated that he did not try to change things, that he genuinely wanted to learn their way of life. When he quietly paid off the medical debt of several families struggling with healthcare costs, word spread quickly. Yates downplayed it, but Harper knew what it meant. "You are making a difference here," she said one evening as they sat on the ranch house porch. "Real, tangible difference in people's lives. I have the resources. Why not use them to help?" Yates shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. "Because most people with resources do not. They talk about philanthropy but do not see the individual humans." Harper kissed his cheek. "You see people, Yates. That is your mother coming through." Robert Pierce grew to genuinely like Yates, appreciating his willingness to work hard and learn. Over dinner one night, he brought up the ranch's financial challenges. "We are struggling to compete with corporate operations," Robert admitted. "I have been thinking about selling, but it breaks my heart. This land has been in our family for 4 generations. Yates had been waiting for this opening. What if you did not have to sell? What if there was a way to modernize sustainably, to increase efficiency without compromising your values?" They talked late into the night, Yates outlining potential strategies, better marketing, partnerships with high-end restaurants seeking sustainably raised beef, investment in technology that supported rather than replaced their practices. Robert listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions. "This would require capital I do not have," Robert said finally. "Consider it an investment. I believe in what you are doing here and I want to see it succeed." Yates looked at Harper, who was watching him with shining eyes. "Besides, I have a vested interest in this ranch's future." Robert's expression turned knowing. "My daughter." "Yes, sir, I love Harper. This is not charity, it is me investing in our future." Robert studied Yates for a long moment, then extended his hand. "Then let us discuss terms." Harper walked Yates out to his car later, unable to stop smiling. "You did not have to do that. I wanted to. Your father is a good man building something worthwhile, and I meant what I said. I am investing in our future." Yates pulled Harper close. "I love you. I want to build a life with you. I love you too." Harper kissed him softly. "This is really happening, is not it? You and me, making this work. It is really happening." The pattern continued over the next several months, Yates splitting time between New York and Montana, gradually shifting more responsibilities to his capable team. Harper visited New York twice, meeting Marcus and seeing Yates's world. She was overwhelmed by the city but impressed by his work, by the genuine good his company accomplished. "I understand now," she said during her second visit, standing in his office overlooking the city. "This matters. What you are building here, the lives you are changing with medicine, it is important work. So is what you do. Different scale, same principle, caring for living things, being responsible stewards." Yates wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I do not want to choose between these lives. I want both with you. Then we will make both work." 8 months after Yates first arrived in Riverside, he returned with a ring. He had designed it himself, a Montana sapphire surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. Simple, elegant, strong, like Harper. He proposed at the lake cabin at sunset, on the porch where they had first admitted their feelings. Harper cried and laughed and said yes before he could finish his prepared speech. "I had this whole thing planned. Yates protested as Harper kissed him breathlessly. "I do not need speeches. I just need you." Harper looked at the ring through tears. "It is perfect. You are perfect." They married 6 months later in the small Riverside church, surrounded by family and friends. Marcus served as best man, Harper's best friend, Sarah, as maid of honor. Robert walked Harper down the aisle with tears in his eyes, and the whole town attended the reception in the community center. During their first dance, Yates held Harper close, overwhelmed by happiness. "Thank you for taking a chance on a lost billionaire. Thank you for seeing me, for choosing this life." Harper smiled up at him. "Your mother would be so happy. She led me to you, best gift she could have given me." They honeymooned at the lake cabin, spending 2 weeks disconnected from the world. When they returned, it was to the ranch house where Robert had insisted they take the master bedroom. Yates had already begun building them a home on the property, a beautiful timber frame house with mountain views, designed to complement rather than dominate the landscape. Yates continued splitting time between Montana and New York, but Montana increasingly became home base. He opened a small pharmaceutical research facility in Missoula, focusing on rural healthcare solutions. The work was fulfilling, the pace more sustainable, and he was near Harper. Harper flourished with Yates's support. She finished her book on Montana ranching families, which found a publisher and modest success. She continued her work at the library and the ranch, now financially stable thanks to their partnership. 2 years after their wedding, Harper told Yates she was pregnant. They were at their house, the one they had built together, sitting on the porch watching sunset paint the mountains gold. "Really?" Yates could barely breathe. "We are having a baby. We are having a baby." Harper was glowing, radiant with joy. "Are you happy?" Yates pulled her into his lap, holding her carefully, his hand already moving protectively to her still flat stomach. "I am more than happy. I am complete." Their daughter was born on a spring morning, perfect and healthy, with dark hair like Yates and hazel eyes like Harper. They named her Catherine, after the woman who had brought them together. Robert cried when he held his granddaughter. Ellen and Catherine would be so proud. "We are keeping their memory alive through this little one." As Yates looked at his family, his wife nursing their daughter, his father-in-law beaming with pride, the community that had embraced him, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. His mother had known, somehow, that he needed to find his roots to grow into the man he was meant to be. She had left him a map in the form of a photograph, and it had led him to everything he never knew he needed. Harper looked up, caught him watching, and smiled with such love that Yates felt his heart expand. "What are you thinking?" "That I am the luckiest man alive. That I found home in the last place I expected, with the most extraordinary woman I have ever known." Yates kissed her forehead, then his daughter's. "That my mother was right. Success is not about what you build, but who you love and who loves you back. Wise woman, your mother, she was, and she raised a son who finally learned that lesson." Catherine Yates Xavier grew up surrounded by love, equally comfortable in her grandfather's ranch and her father's research facility. She learned to ride before she could properly walk, spent summers at the lake cabin, and absorbed stories of the grandmother she was named after. On Catherine's 5th birthday, Yates and Harper took her to the cemetery. Harper lifted their daughter so she could place flowers on both graves, her great-grandmother Ellen and her grandmother Catherine. "Who were they?" Catherine asked, her young voice curious. "They were extraordinary women who loved deeply and changed lives," Yates said. "Your grandmother Catherine brought me to this place, to your mother. Everything good in my life started with her love. Will I be extraordinary too?" Catherine's question was earnest, her small face serious. "You already are," Harper assured her. "You have their strength, their kindness, their courage. You are their legacy, sweetheart." As they walked back to their car, Catherine between them holding both their hands, Yates felt profound gratitude. His journey from lonely billionaire to husband and father had started with a single photograph and a desperate need to understand his mother's past. What he had found was not just her history but his future, a woman who saw beyond his wealth to his heart, a community that welcomed him, a life filled with purpose and love. That evening, as Harper put Catherine to bed and Yates cleaned up from the birthday party, he found himself back on their porch, looking out at the mountains. His phone buzzed with messages from New York board updates, market reports, acquisition opportunities. He glanced at them, dealt with what was urgent, and set the phone aside. Harper joined him, sliding into his embrace. "Good day, perfect day." Yates tightened his arms around her. "Every day with you is perfect, sweet talker." But Harper was smiling. "I have news. The publisher wants a sequel to my book, and I am thinking about starting a nonprofit to preserve family ranch histories." "That is wonderful. What do you need from me?" "Just your support. Maybe some business guidance setting up the nonprofit structure." Harper turned in his arms to face him. "You have given me so much, Yates. The financial security to pursue my passions, the confidence to dream bigger. You gave me life, Harper. Real life, not just existence. Everything I have is meaningless without you and Catherine." Yates kissed her slowly, deeply, still amazed that this incredible woman was his. They stood together as night fell, the mountains darkening against the sky, lights from the town twinkling in the distance. Yates thought about the man he had been 3 years ago, driven, successful, but fundamentally empty. He was a different person now, shaped by love and community and purpose beyond profit. His mother had known, somehow, that he needed to find this place, these people. She had planted the seed with that photograph, trusting that when he was ready he would come looking. And in looking for his mother's past, he had found his own future. "What are you thinking about?" Harper asked, her voice soft in the darkness. "My mother. How she led me here to you. How everything I thought I wanted was wrong, and everything I needed was here waiting." Yates kissed Harper's temple. "How love is not what I expected. It is better, deeper, more real. She would love knowing you are happy, that you found someone to share your life with." Harper looked up at him. "I wish I could thank her for raising such an amazing man. You honor her every day by loving me, by being the woman who saw past the money and the walls to who I really am." Yates guided Harper inside. "Come on, let me show you how much I love you." Their life continued to unfold in beautiful ways. Catherine grew into a bright, curious child who loved books and horses equally. Robert remained active on the ranch, mentoring Catherine in ranching traditions as she got older. The Pierce family ranch not only survived but thrived, becoming a model for sustainable practices that other family operations studied and emulated. Yates's pharmaceutical work evolved too. The Missoula facility became known for innovative research into rural healthcare access, developing delivery systems and treatments specifically designed for underserved communities. It was some of his most meaningful work, driven not by profit but by genuine desire to solve problems. 5 years after Catherine's birth, Harper gave Yates the news that they were expecting again. This time, twin boys who arrived healthy and boisterous, filling their home with noise and chaos and joy. They named them Robert, after Harper's father, and Marcus, after Yates's best friend who had supported his crazy decision to split his life between 2 worlds. Marcus visited regularly, falling in love with Montana and eventually buying a vacation home near the lake. "You were right," he told Yates during one visit as they watched their children play. "There is more to life than the next deal, the next acquisition. You figured that out faster than most. I had good motivation." Yates gestured to where Harper was laughing with the children, her hair catching sunlight, her face glowing with happiness. Best decision I ever made was taking that trip to Riverside. Best decision your mother made was leading you here. Marcus clinked his beer bottle against Yates's. To Catherine, for her wisdom, and to Harper, for seeing what the rest of the world missed. On what would have been his mother's 80th birthday, Yates organized a community event in Riverside, a health fair offering free screenings, vaccinations, and consultations, funded by Xavier Pharmaceuticals. It was his way of giving back to the town that had given him everything, of honoring his mother's memory through service. Harper stood beside him as they cut the ribbon to open the event. Their children gathered around them. The town turned out in force, appreciating both the gesture and the genuine care behind it. Your mother would be so proud, an elderly woman told Yates, tears in her eyes. She always said you were going to change the world, but I do not think she meant just through medicine. She meant through love and generosity, and remembering where you come from. That night, Yates and Harper escaped to the lake cabin, just the two of them while Robert watched the children. They sat on the porch where so much of their story had unfolded, holding hands, watching stars emerge. "Do you ever regret it?" Harper asked quietly. "Giving up the New York life, the penthouses and galas, and being at the center of everything?" Yates did not have to think about his answer. Never, not for a single second. That was not living, Harper. It was performing, achieving, collecting accolades that meant nothing. This, he gestured around them to the mountains and stars and simple cabin, this is living. You are living. Our children, this community, the work that actually matters. I would give up everything else 1,000 times over for this. I love you. Harper's voice was thick with emotion. I love you so much, Yates Xavier. I love you too. You saved me, Harper. You and this place, you saved me from a life that looked successful but was actually empty. Yates pulled her closer. My mother brought me here, but you gave me a reason to stay, to build something real. They made love in the cabin that night, their connection as powerful as it had been in the beginning but deepened by years of partnership, of weathering challenges together, of building a family and a life. Afterward, lying tangled together, Yates felt complete peace. What are you thinking? Harper murmured sleepily. That I am exactly where I am supposed to be, that my mother's greatest gift was not the company or the wealth it was showing me the way home. Yates kissed Harper's hair. That I am the luckiest man alive because I found you. We found each other. Your mother made sure of that. As Harper drifted to sleep, Yates stayed awake a little longer, thinking about his journey. From the driven, lonely billionaire who had discovered a photograph to the man, he was now husband, father, community member, someone whose success was measured in love rather than money. His mother had known what he needed, had orchestrated this even from beyond death. Thank you, Mom, Yates whispered to the night. Thank you for bringing me home, for leading me to Harper. I promise I will honor your memory by living fully, by being the man you always believed I could be. The years continued to unfold with their share of joys and challenges. The ranch faced difficult seasons, but they weathered them together. Yates's company continued its important work, with him providing strategic direction even as he stepped back from daily operations. Their children grew, each developing unique personalities, but all sharing their parents' values of hard work, compassion, and community. Catherine, true to her namesake, showed early interest in medicine and helping others. The twins were inseparable, Robert gravitating toward ranching while Marcus showed business acumen that made Yates laugh, history repeating in the next generation. When Catherine turned 15, Harper and Yates took her to visit New York, showing her that side of their lives. She was impressed but ultimately unswayed. "It is amazing, Dad, but Montana is home. This is just visiting." "That is exactly right," Yates agreed, proud of her clarity. "Never lose sight of what matters, sweetheart." On their 20th wedding anniversary, Yates and Harper renewed their vows in the same church where they had married. The building was packed with family and friends, their children standing as witnesses. Robert, now in his late 70s but still vital, gave a speech that left no dry eyes. "20 years ago, a lost young man came to our town looking for his mother's history," Robert said, his voice strong despite his age. "He found that, but he found so much more. He found love, family, purpose. And we gained not just a son, but a partner, a friend, someone who never forgot where he came from even as he changed the world." "Yates, Harper, your love is what Catherine and Ellen hoped for, real, enduring, the kind that builds legacy." As they danced at the reception, Harper looked up at Yates with the same love he had seen in her eyes that first day in the diner. 20 years. Can you believe it? Best 20 years of my life." Yates held her close. "Here is to 20 more and 20 after that. Always the ambitious one." But Harper was smiling. "I love you, Yates. Thank you for choosing this life, choosing me. Thank you for being worth choosing, for making every day an adventure." Yates kissed her as their children and friends cheered. "I would do it all again, exactly the same way." As night fell and the celebration continued, Yates found himself thinking about his mother again. She would have loved this, the family they had built, the life they had created. She had given him the map, and he had followed it to everything that mattered. Harper joined him where he stood at the edge of the celebration, taking his hand. "She knows," Harper said softly, reading his thoughts as she often did. "Wherever she is, Catherine knows you are happy, that you found what you were looking for." "I found more than I was looking for. I found everything." Yates wrapped his arm around his wife, watching their children dance with their grandfather, watching friends and community celebrate with them. "I found home," and it was true. The billionaire, who had come to a small Montana town seeking his mother's past, had found his future instead in the woman who had known her, in the community that embraced him, in the love that transformed everything. His mother's final gift had been the greatest, showing him that success was not measured in dollars or acquisitions, but in love given and received, in family built and treasured, in a life lived with purpose and connection. As stars emerged over Riverside, Yates held Harper close and knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he belonged, living the life he was meant to live, with the woman he was meant to love. His mother had brought him home, and home was everything.